When Evelyn Thorne received the letter, it was sealed with a wax emblem she didn't recognize. The paper smelled faintly of old books and lavender. It was addressed neatly, Miss Evelyn Thorne, sole beneficiary. Inside, the message was simple. You are informed that the estate of your great-aunt Lillian Bexley, deceased, is now in your name. Greystone Manor in Drummond Hollow is yours. A key is enclosed. Evelyn had never heard of Lillian Bexley. No known relatives. Her parents never mentioned anyone by that name. Still, a cold iron key dropped into her palm, a key shaped like an open eye with a small red gemstone in its center. Curiosity overrode caution. She took 2 weeks off work and boarded a train north. The journey grew lonelier as the signal on her phone disappeared and the landscape turned wild and foggy. At the small station, she found no one waiting, only a manila envelope taped to a bench with a crudely drawn map and a note, car in the lot. Keys under mat. She drove alone, through twisted fences and dying trees, toward the manor that appeared from the mist like a dark ship. Greystone Manor loomed large, its stone walls blotched with moss, windows like black mirrors in fading light. Despite its age, the house looked preserved, as if waiting for her. She parked beneath a weeping willow that shivered in still air. With the strange iron key, she unlocked the door. It creaked open, releasing a cold breath smelling of dust and something metallic, old blood. Inside, silence reigned, thick and expectant. The grand entry hall held covered furniture, and faded paintings under white sheets. On the table, a folded parchment read simply, "Welcome home." Beneath was a detailed floor plan, marking curious rooms, the observatory, the mirror room, servants' passage, and the wing that sleeps. One room was chained and marked, "Do not enter." She chose the smallest guest room for the night, avoiding the master bedroom, which felt claimed by another presence. At midnight, the house groaned, not settling sounds, but deliberate footsteps and distant knocks. Evelyn clutched a flashlight, frozen in bed. Just the wind, she told herself. But the house had never moved. It was listening. Morning brought no comfort, fog blanketed the windows, her phone was dead, and the house line only static. Exploring, she found strange objects, clocks ticking backward, portraits with scratched-out eyes, and books in unknown languages. In the library, a photo album revealed a girl who looked like her, standing on the manor steps. It was labeled, Lillian, age 28. Evelyn was 28. A heavy thud above startled her. She wasn't alone. In the coldest room, ashes lay fresh in the fireplace. On the mantel rested a silver hand mirror. When she looked, her reflection blinked first. She fled. That night, she dreamed of endless hallways lined with locked doors. Voices called her name. Awakening, she found the iron key warm on her pillow, its red gemstone pulsing like a heartbeat. A whisper echoed, "Remember." The morning after the mirror's eerie betrayal, Evelyn awoke with a chill curling deep inside her spine. The manor seemed heavier, as if the walls themselves held their breath. She dressed quickly, ignoring the creeping sense that unseen eyes followed her every move. Determined to unravel the secrets of Greystone Manor, she studied the floor plan again, focusing on the room marked, "Do not enter." The heavy steel door chained shut beckoned with silent menace. She wandered the hallways, tracing her fingers over peeling wallpaper and cold wooden banisters, every creak amplifying the quiet terror inside. The observatory was next. Its massive domed ceiling cracked with age, glass panes stained and fractured, but the telescope inside was polished and seemingly well maintained. She peered through the eyepiece, expecting darkness, but instead saw shifting shadows that twisted into faces, anguished, pleading, and sometimes smiling with hollow eyes. She recoiled, heart pounding. Elsewhere in the manor, she found journals written in delicate script, filled with entries describing dreams that bled into waking life, warnings about the Watcher and the whispering halls. Her fingers trembled as she read of her great-aunt Lillian's descent into madness, haunted by voices only she could hear. Evelyn's own footsteps echoed in rhythm with the faintest whispers that teased her ears. Night approached faster here, swallowing light and reason. When darkness settled, the manor seemed to breathe, its wooden bones stretching and shifting. The steel door remained chained, yet sometimes she thought she saw faint glimmers of movement behind it. Unable to resist, she tried the locks, rusty and brittle under her fingers. A faint groan escaped the room as if warning her to stop. Retreating, she fled to the wing that sleeps, a part of the house cloaked in shadows. The bed was made, though no one lay there. The air smelled of cold sweat and forgotten memories. As she sat on the edge, her phone buzzed, briefly gaining signal before cutting to static. A message appeared, "You should not be here." The words faded like mist. Her reflection flickered in a cracked window pane. This time, it smiled. The house whispered secrets beneath its breath, promises and threats tangled together. Sleep was a fragile thing, invaded by corridors that stretched forever and voices that called her name with desperation. Evelyn knew the house was alive, that it held her in its grasp. Somewhere beyond the chained door was the truth, and perhaps, a key to escape or to surrender. The question remained, which would she choose? Evelyn awoke to the heavy stillness of the manor, the silence pressing on her ears like a living thing. The warning on her phone haunted her thoughts: "You should not be here." Despite the unease, she resolved to learn more about the chained door and the secrets it guarded. She spent the day searching the house for clues, uncovering old letters tucked beneath floorboards, brittle pages that spoke of rituals and ancient pacts. The manor's history was darker than she imagined. Her great-aunt had been involved in occult practices meant to bind spirits, to hold something captive within the walls. As evening approached, Evelyn's footsteps echoed unnaturally loud, and shadows lengthened into grotesque shapes that seemed to leer at her from every corner. She returned to the wing that sleeps, drawn inexplicably to the stillness there. On the bedside table, a silver locket lay open, inside a faded photograph of a young woman whose eyes held a terrible sadness. Evelyn recognized her face instantly. It was herself. Heart pounding, she pocketed the locket and fled before the house could claim her mind. That night, the whispers grew louder, voices overlapping in a cacophony of warnings, pleas, and threats. Sleep offered no escape. She dreamed of endless halls lined with doors that opened onto voids filled with swirling darkness. Each door whispered her name, promising answers if only she would enter. Morning came with no relief. Her reflection in the mirror no longer mimicked her movements but looked on with cold detachment. Desperation urged her toward the chained door once more. This time, the locks resisted less, rust giving way under her touch. With a final heave, the chains snapped, and the door creaked open to reveal a narrow staircase spiraling down into blackness. A chill rushed upward, carrying the scent of damp earth and something far older, something waiting. She stepped inside, the walls closing behind her as whispers chased her steps. At the bottom, a vast chamber opened, filled with relics of forgotten rituals, candles melted to stubs, bones arranged in circles, and a cracked mirror hanging askew. The air hummed with unseen energy, alive and watching. Evelyn knew the house had led her here for a reason. Somewhere deep within, a presence stirred, eager to be freed or to trap her forever. The choice was no longer hers alone. The chamber was colder than anything Evelyn had ever felt, the air thick with the scent of decay and something metallic that made her stomach turn. The cracked mirror on the wall reflected flickering candlelight, casting distorted images that twisted and writhed as if alive. Around her, symbols etched into the stone floor glowed faintly, pulsating with an unnatural rhythm. Evelyn's breath caught as a voice echoed softly from the darkness, barely more than a whisper yet unmistakably calling her name. She stepped forward cautiously, feeling the weight of unseen eyes watching her every move. The relics scattered about seemed charged with power, remnants of rituals meant to contain or summon forces beyond comprehension. At the chamber's center lay an ancient book bound in worn leather, its pages yellowed and brittle. Trembling, Evelyn reached out and opened it, the script inside flowing like ink on water, words that seemed to rearrange themselves when she tried to read. The language was strange, alien yet somehow familiar, as if a distant memory from another life. The whispers grew louder, pressing against her mind, threading through her thoughts like cold fingers. She forced herself to focus, piecing together fragments of meaning, a curse, a warning, a plea for release. The house was a prison, and she, the unintended warden. As she read, shadows coalesced into shapes, ghostly figures that drifted just beyond sight, their faces pale and eyes hollow. They reached out, silent screams etched in their expressions. Panic surged through Evelyn, and she slammed the book shut, breaking the spell. The chamber fell silent, but the heaviness remained, pressing in on her chest. She scrambled back up the stairs, the shadows retreating as the door swung shut behind her with a final, echoing thud. Outside, the manor seemed to pulse with new energy, as if awakened by her intrusion. That night, the whispers invaded her dreams again, louder, more urgent. She awoke gasping, the silver locket in her hand warm and pulsing like a heartbeat. The house was alive, and it demanded something, her obedience, her surrender, or perhaps her very soul. Evelyn understood then that Greystone Manor was no mere inheritance, it was a curse passed down through blood, and the key she held was both lock and chain. Her choice was narrowing, and the shadows waited patiently for her to decide. The days that followed felt suspended between reality and nightmare, as if the manor itself blurred the boundaries of time and space. Evelyn found herself wandering endlessly through twisting corridors that rearranged themselves without warning. Rooms she had entered moments before were gone or transformed, walls bleeding shadow, doors opening onto impossible vistas. The weight of the silver locket against her chest became a constant reminder of the legacy she could neither deny nor escape. She tried to reach out beyond the manor's suffocating grip, but her phone signal vanished again, and the landline in the study emitted only static and distant murmurs. One evening, drawn by a compulsion she didn't understand, Evelyn returned to the mirror room, the one filled with countless reflective surfaces. There, her reflection no longer mirrored her movements but acted independently, smiling when she was grave, frowning when she was calm. It mouthed words she couldn't hear, its eyes gleaming with a cold intelligence. She slammed the door and backed away, heart hammering, but the whispers followed her relentlessly. Sleep became a fragile refuge from the manor's persistent hauntings, though even dreams offered no peace. She found herself in the same endless hallway, doors stretching beyond sight, each one hiding secrets and dangers. One door creaked open to reveal a child's laughter echoing in a darkened nursery. Another showed a graveyard where shadows danced between ancient stones. In every dream, a figure watched her, a woman cloaked in tattered black, her eyes burning with sorrow and fury. Evelyn awoke one morning to find the locket broken open on her bedside table. Inside, a faded photograph had changed. It now showed a smiling woman who looked exactly like her great-aunt Lillian, holding a child with Evelyn's face. The message was clear. The past and present were entwined, and she was trapped in a cycle she could not break alone. Determined, Evelyn scoured the manor for answers, uncovering a hidden journal written by Lillian. Its pages revealed a desperate plea for forgiveness and a warning. An ancient entity bound beneath the house had been awakened, feeding on fear and sorrow. Only by confronting the darkness could the curse be ended. But the entity was cunning, able to mimic voices and memories, turning hope into despair. The house whispered again, "Choose." Evelyn realized her fight was no longer just for survival, it was for her soul. The revelation from Lillian's journal weighed heavily on Evelyn's mind, twisting her thoughts into knots of dread and determination. The entity beneath Greystone Manor was more than a restless spirit. It was a dark force, ancient and cunning, feeding on the anguish of those trapped within the house's cold embrace. Evelyn's days merged into nights as she searched for a way to confront this malevolent presence. The manor's layout seemed to shift at will, corridors stretching endlessly or collapsing into dead ends. Objects moved when she wasn't looking, whispers slipped through cracks in the walls, promising salvation or destruction. She clutched the broken locket, now a talisman of both hope and warning. One evening, while exploring the servants' passage, a narrow, hidden hallway rumored to connect every part of the manor, she discovered a small wooden box concealed beneath loose floorboards. Inside lay a collection of strange artifacts. A silver dagger etched with runes, a vial of dark liquid, and a folded parchment with a ritual incantation. The words pulsed with power, promising to bind or banish the darkness if spoken with conviction. As Evelyn prepared for the ritual, the house reacted violently. Doors slammed shut, extinguishing her candles. Shadows coalesced into twisting forms that lunged and retreated just beyond her grasp. Her reflection in the mirror cracked and fractured, the glass bleeding a dark, viscous substance. Fear clawed at her resolve, but she recited the incantation aloud, her voice steady despite the chaos. The manor trembled, walls groaning as if in pain. The shadows screamed, voices rising to a deafening crescendo before abruptly silencing. Silence fell, deep and complete. For a moment, Evelyn felt as if the house exhaled, releasing a breath it had held for centuries. She dared to hope the curse had been lifted. But as she turned to leave the chamber, a cold whisper brushed her ear. Soft, insistent, chilling. This is only the beginning. The iron key in her pocket pulsed faintly, reminding her that the house's grip was far from broken. Outside, the first light of dawn seeped through the fog, casting long shadows that seemed to watch and wait. Evelyn knew that Greystone Manor held more secrets, darker than she could imagine. The battle had begun, but whether she would emerge free or forever lost was still unwritten. In the days after the ritual, a fragile calm settled over Greystone Manor, but Evelyn knew better than to trust silence. The house's breathing was slower, yet every creak and whisper felt deliberate, as if the walls themselves watched and waited. She spent hours poring over the scattered notes and journals left by Lillian, piecing together fragments of history and ritual, desperate to understand the force that haunted her inheritance. Strange occurrences persisted, fleeting shadows that darted at the edge of her vision, faint music echoing from empty rooms, and the ever-present sensation of being watched. One afternoon, drawn inexplicably to the observatory, Evelyn found the massive telescope pointing toward a starless sky. On the desk lay a cryptic letter, written in Lillian's delicate hand, revealing that the entity's origins were tied to a celestial event, a rare convergence that had cursed the family line centuries ago. The letter warned that unless the cycle was broken during the next such alignment, the darkness would grow stronger, consuming all tied to the manor. Nightfall brought no respite. Evelyn's dreams twisted into a maze of memories not her own, visions of Lillian performing forbidden rites, of shadowy figures lurking beneath the manor's foundations, and of a child's laughter turning to screams. She awoke to find the iron key glowing faintly in the dark, its red gemstone pulsing like a heartbeat. Compelled by a force she could neither resist nor explain, Evelyn descended into the hidden chambers below the manor once more. There, in the deepest vault, she discovered a massive stone altar engraved with the same sigil from the wax-sealed letter. The air was thick with the scent of incense and something acrid, smoke or decay. As she approached, the shadows gathered, coalescing into a figure cloaked in darkness, its eyes burning with ancient malice. The entity spoke in a voice that echoed inside her mind, offering power in exchange for freedom. Evelyn's resolve hardened. She would not be seduced or broken. Instead, she raised the silver dagger found in the servants' passage and prepared to face the darkness once and for all. The house groaned, the walls shaking as if protesting her defiance. In that moment, Evelyn understood that the true battle was not just for the manor, but for her very soul, and the fate of all bound to the curse. The confrontation in the depths of Greystone Manor left Evelyn trembling, but resolute. The shadowy figure before her twisted and shifted, eyes burning with fury and ancient sorrow. Its voice slithered through her mind, promising oblivion if she surrendered, or eternal torment if she resisted. Clutching the silver dagger tight, Evelyn recited the incantation once more, her voice steady despite the fear that gripped her heart. The altar glowed, symbols igniting with ethereal light as the entity recoiled, shrieking in a language that scratched at the edges of sanity. The air thickened, charged with a pulse that seemed to echo the heartbeat of the manor itself. As the ritual climaxed, the walls trembled, and a blinding light erupted from the altar, momentarily engulfing Evelyn. When the brightness faded, the shadow was gone, leaving an oppressive silence that settled deep into the bones of the house. Evelyn collapsed against the cold stone floor, breath ragged, mind swirling with exhaustion and relief. But the manor had not released its hold so easily. Over the following days, she noticed subtle changes. Rooms once dark and foreboding now shimmered with a faint, otherworldly glow. The oppressive weight that had hung over the house seemed lighter, yet an unfamiliar energy hummed beneath the surface. The locket, once warm and pulsing, now lay cold and inert. Yet Evelyn's dreams offered no peace. In the quiet of night, she saw glimpses of the woman in black, her sorrowful eyes replaced by something harder, resignation, or perhaps acceptance. The voices had fallen silent, but a lingering question remained: had the entity truly been banished, or merely contained? One morning, as Evelyn explored the wing that sleeps, she discovered a hidden door behind the tapestry, its surface etched with the same sigil as the iron key. With trembling hands, she inserted the key, which turned smoothly. The door creaked open to reveal a chamber untouched by time, filled with relics and memories of generations past. Among them lay a diary, its pages brittle but legible, penned by Lillian in her final days. It spoke of hope, sacrifice, and a warning that the manor's curse was tied to the bloodline, and only through understanding one's past could the cycle be broken. Evelyn felt the weight of responsibility settle firmly on her shoulders. The house whispered once more, softer now, almost gentle, urging her to remember, to choose, to fight. She understood then that her journey was far from over, but for the first time, she dared to believe she might prevail. The discovery of Lillian's diary ignited a new flame of determination within Evelyn. Each page revealed the tangled history of the Vexley bloodline, secrets of dark pacts and desperate bargains made generations ago to protect the manor and its inhabitants from the entity's wrath. The diary described how Lillian had sought to contain the darkness through rituals and artifacts, yet feared her efforts were doomed to fail. Evelyn pored over the diary late into the night, the flickering candlelight casting long shadows that seemed to dance with the words on the pages. The manor itself responded. Whispers floated through the halls, no longer threatening but almost mournful, as if the house mourned the burden it carried. Evelyn learned of a hidden chamber known as the Heart of Greystone, a place said to hold the source of the manor's power and the key to breaking the curse once and for all. Guided by the diary's cryptic instructions, she traced her steps back through secret passages and forgotten stairwells, her heart pounding as the air grew colder and heavier. At last, she found a concealed door beneath the grand staircase, its surface carved with intertwining vines and the ever-present sigil. The iron key in her hand pulsed faintly as she inserted it into the lock. The door opened with a reluctant groan, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. Each step echoed in the silence, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and ancient stone. At the bottom, Evelyn entered a cavernous chamber bathed in faint, eerie light. In the center stood a massive stone altar, its surface etched with runes that seemed to shimmer and shift when viewed from the corner of her eye. Surrounding it were remnants of forgotten rituals, cracked chalices, scorched candles, and withered flowers. Evelyn stepped forward, the weight of generations pressing down on her. She placed the locket on the altar, feeling its coldness seep into the stone. Suddenly, the room trembled, and the shadows coalesced once more, forming the shape of the entity. This time, however, it was different, less hostile, more desperate. It spoke of a bond forged in pain, of a cycle neither could escape without sacrifice. Evelyn understood then that breaking the curse would demand everything she had, her courage, her strength, and her willingness to face the darkness within herself. As the chamber filled with a blinding light, she steeled herself for the final confrontation, knowing that whatever the outcome, the story of Greystone Manor would be forever changed. The final chapter of Evelyn's journey began in the radiant glow of the altar chamber, where shadows danced and the air thrummed with ancient power. The entity's presence loomed before her, not as a monstrous force, but as a sorrowful echo of a once human soul trapped in endless torment. Its voice was soft yet commanding, weaving a tale of betrayal and regret, of a family bound by a curse born of hubris and despair. Evelyn listened, heart aching, as the entity revealed the truth. The curse was not merely a punishment but a desperate plea for release, a cycle that fed on fear and denial. To break it, Evelyn would have to surrender not just her fear, but her very identity, embracing both light and shadow within herself. The silver dagger in her hand felt heavier now, a symbol of choice rather than violence. Closing her eyes, she began the final incantation, calling upon the strength of her ancestors and the resolve forged through her trials. The manor responded. A symphony of creaking wood, rushing wind, and distant whispers, melding into a crescendo that filled every corner of Greystone. Light and darkness collided in a tempest that shook the very foundation of the house. When the storm subsided, Evelyn opened her eyes to find the chamber transformed. The altar glowed softly, the ruins now peaceful, and the oppressive weight that once filled the manor lifted like a dissipating fog. The entity's form faded into a gentle breeze, a final whisper of gratitude and farewell. As she ascended the spiral staircase, the first light of dawn streamed through the windows, casting warm hues on the manor's stone walls. Outside, the fog lifted, revealing the rolling hills and ancient oaks in clear, bright detail. Evelyn stepped onto the veranda, the iron key cool and still in her pocket, a reminder of the journey she had endured. The house, once a prison of shadows, now stood as a testament to resilience and redemption. Though the whispers had quieted, Evelyn knew the manor's story was not finished. Its walls held memories and secrets yet to be told. But for the first time, she felt a sense of peace, a fragile hope blossoming amid the echoes of the past. She was no longer just a visitor or a prisoner. She was the keeper of Greystone Manor, its guardian and its legacy. The path ahead was uncertain, but Evelyn was ready. The house that whispered had finally found its voice, and it spoke of healing, courage, and the enduring light within darkness.